It is not an investment vehicle
Oh,
by choice. You should use investing vehicles in your 15%, meaning mutual funds and your 401k, Roth IRAs, and those kinds of things.
someone in my private group sent me this video to get my thoughts on it. And the question is if you should count your HSA towards investing. And if so, how much? Let's see what Dave Ramsey has to say about it. And you can also join my private group by visiting firechat.com/community. Also, don't miss out on the biggest Black Friday sales of the year for my courses and private community. And you can get the 50% discount coupon code in the description below.
Does contributing to your HSA count towards your 15% investing? I have built up quite a bit in my HSA and am thinking about investing within it. And how do you know what funds to pick? I would not use my HSA towards the 15% because your HSA can only be used for medical. If you use it for anything else, it's taxable and penalized. And I would, until you're 65, and after you're 65, you can do a withdrawal on it like you can on anything else.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, oh no, I think he missed the mark on this one, or maybe he misunderstood the question. But to answer that lady's question in the letter or whatever, I would absolutely invest what she has in her HSA into the investments inside her HSA. There's no penalty for you to invest your HSA money in investments. And I'm guessing that she had already contributed to her HSA from her paychecks. What mutual funds are in her HSA will actually depend on the broker inside her HSA. And I have an HSA that only comes with a very few index funds. And one of them just happens to be the S&P 500 index fund. And that's not in any form of personalized financial advice. What you want to invest will depend on your risk tolerance and how your overall portfolio is diversified. Now, Dave is right about the HSA because before you're 65 years old, you can technically only reimburse yourself with qualified medical expenses. And you can look at the list on the IRS website. And what he forgot to mention is that you can actually reimburse your medical expenses at any time. So, for example, if you spent $200 on your contact lenses from 2 years ago, you can reimburse yourself $200 at any time, regardless of your age, penalty free. There's no expiration on when you can reimburse that $200 as long as you keep your receipt. So the way I do it is I have a completely separate credit card to make these qualified medical expenses with a 3% cashback or something like that. So I can kind of beat inflation, save my receipts, and then I plan to reimburse myself in the future if I want to go on a vacation or pay for something else that I want. And I always keep digital receipts or scan those printed receipts to a cloud and use a spreadsheet to organize those expenses. So again, you can reimburse yourself and use it for anything because you already paid the medical expenses up front with your cash. And I'm basically prepaying my medical expenses now because I want my HSA to grow in those investments as much as possible. And I don't want to touch it, right? And that's why, not touching my HSA until I'm completely retired, it's just going to keep growing and growing. But like Dave Ramsey said, you can use your HSA for anything after you turn 65 years old. And that's why I'm treating my HSA like a retirement account. And we all know that our medical expenses will keep going up.
An HSA is a health savings account that is tax deductible and can be used for medical. Okay? And meaning that the government's paying part of your medical if you do that. It's tied to a low-cost health insurance plan because it's a high deductible health insurance plan and you cover the deductible with the HSA. It is not an investment vehicle by choice. You should use investing vehicles in your 15%, meaning mutual funds and your 401k, Roth IRAs, and those kinds of things. Having said that, I'll answer the rest of your question. Once you get to baby step 7 and your house is paid off and you're maxing out things left and right, then you can use your HSA as an investing vehicle, and I have.
I have nothing but respect for Dave Ramsey and what his team does for the people getting out of debt. I met him in Vegas earlier this year at the Think Media conference, and my wife and I visited their facility in Tennessee almost 2 years ago. But I have to disagree with Dave on this one. I don't put the mortgage payments until the very last step of my financial independence checklist. So here's where I put my HSA on the investment priority list. The first one is to calculate my financial independence number. And I do this once a year. And if it's your first time, then you should do it now and then calculate it again once a year. This is your total annual expenses multiplied by 25, and that tells you how much you'll need to retire with just your investments based on a 4% withdrawal rate. And you need to calculate it every year to adjust for inflation. And then the second step is to have enough money in your rainy day fund. And you should add up all of your insurance deductibles to find out how much you need to set aside. And it's typically between $1,000 and $2,000. And the third step is to invest in your 401k, but it is only up to your employer's match. So if your employer matches 100% of your 5% contribution, then only invest that up to 5%. Then the next step, or the fourth step, is to pay off your high interest debt as soon as possible. And then when you become debt free, then you want to start investing in your HSA. And if you don't have an HSA because you don't have a high deductible health plan, then you should max out your Roth IRA. And then the next step is to max out your 401k. I don't even recommend paying off your mortgage early until you've accomplished those steps and are approaching the age of 50. And if you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, you still have time on your side to maximize your retirement contributions. And when you're in your 50s, that's when you want to start scaling back by paying off your mortgage debt. And I don't want to retire with a mortgage at all. When I'm retired, I want to be completely debt free so that the only thing I have to worry about is my cash flow, like my income and expenses. Paying off your mortgage is when you start to become risk averse from investing. And you can always schedule a 60-minute session with me by visiting FinanceChat.com/consultation. And keep in mind that if you are behind on your 2024 HSA contributions, you still have time until April 15, 2025 to max them out. So the 2024 individual or self-only high deductible health plan coverage is $4,150. And if you're over the age of 55, you can contribute an extra $1,000. And if you and your spouse each have an HSA account under the individual plan, you can contribute $4,150 for each person and an extra $1,000 if you're both over the age of 55. If you, your spouse, and your children are in the same HSA family plan, you can contribute up to $8,300. And for 2025, those dollars will change to $4,300 for single individuals and $8,550 for family coverage. And keep in mind that your employer could match or contribute through a pass-through by your health plan. So if that's the case, you have to deduct it from the maximum contribution limit. So for example, if your health insurance contributes $1,000 to your family plan through a pass-through, you'll need to subtract $1,000 from $8,550 for next year in 2025. So your personal contribution limit is now $7,550 because you get that pass-through of $1,000. That makes sense so far, right? And the great thing about the HSA is that it does lower your taxable income. So if your marginal tax rate is 24% on the individual plan, you can save up to $1,032 in taxes when you multiply $4,300 by 24%. It also deducts from your payroll tax or your Social Security and Medicare. So that's a total of 7.65% that you can save by contributing to your HSA. So if you add 7.65% to your federal income tax rate at 24%, that's just an example. You could be at a different marginal tax rate, maybe at 10%, 12%. The most common I've seen is 12%, 22, and 24%. Then if you add 7.65 to 24% marginal tax rate, you could be saving over 31% in taxes. If you're self-employed, you can save up to 15.3% in payroll tax with the HSA. And you can also lower your state income tax, and depending on where you live, right? The only exception is if you live in California or New Jersey, then you'll just have to pay the state income tax on the HSA contributions in those two states. And the money that's inside your HSA can also grow tax-free. And that's why we call it triple tax advantage. So if you invest in mutual funds or ETFs that pay you dividends and capital gains every year, you don't owe any taxes on those gains inside your HSA. And when you turn 65 years old, like Dave Ramsey said, you can use your HSA for anything. And it doesn't need to be for qualified medical expenses. You can even fund your Medicare expenses and deductibles with your HSA when you turn 65 years old. which can save you a lot of money using an HSA, right? And you can download my HSA and other retirement calculators by visiting fiserv.com/resources. And I think Dave just misunderstood the question, and the simple answer should have been yes. You should invest that cash inside your HSA to get a higher return than sitting in an HSA checking account. And I also believe that HSA should be a part of your retirement investment vehicles because it is a triple tax advantage account, and it acts like a retirement account when you turn 65 years old. Healthcare expenses will keep going up with inflation every year, and who knows how much it'll cost to just go to the ER in 20 or 30 years from now, right? And I've done plenty of videos about the HSA strategy, so be sure to check out these 2 videos after watching this one. And this has been another beast of a video, and I hope you got a lot out of it.